Hello folks, welcome to another episode of the Riflechair channel. So we're going to talk a little bit about chainsaws today. Well, specifically this chainsaw. This is a Stihl. It's been a great saw. I've been using this for years and years and years, and it just keeps on going. It's like a really simple saw, not a very powerful saw, but a lightweight saw that just you can pretty much pack anywhere, because it's heavy for a lot of people, I suppose. But I think for your typical average kind of weekend warrior woodcutter, is that the Stihl 170 or the MS-170 is a pretty good saw for your use. I mean, I've used this to buck up years and years worth of firewood. Used it to quarter moose in the bush, pack it out. Been able to take this on some pretty significant wilderness adventures on boat, hunting. You got to keep that wall tent heated, so you got to have a chainsaw, and it's a great little thing. I had to upgrade this from 5/16 to 3/8 inch chain. That garden chain is pretty much what it is. It's not good for anything except for your gardening, in my opinion. Not even for a weekend warrior would that chain be good enough, because you're constantly sharpening it. And so I got 3/8 chain on here. This Rolomatic E bar, which was a little bit of an upgrade. So this is about the third bar I've had on it now, and it's been fantastic. Now, what I will say is about these saws is you are going to have to do a little bit of maintenance. You have to be a little bit mechanically inclined, and you're gonna need to replace the spark plug maybe once every 3-4 years, depending on how much use you get out of it. I've been running this for years, and I've only just recently put a new spark plug in it, and I'm just going to keep the other one. It's not too bad. The carboned up, it's firing pretty good, but I figured, I'll just do it, and put new air filter in this thing, new fuel filter in this thing. I'm still running the original bearings. I've been running this saw for about 5 or 6 years. Still got the original bearing in it, the original clutch. There's not been giving me any problems whatsoever. The pull cord, it's not frayed. And so many of the new saws these days, they actually have a computer in it, a motherboard. They gotta let it sit there and warm up for a couple of minutes before you even think about running it. And it needs to calibrate itself, and it's doing this. It's trying to maximize your fuel economy and maybe even emissions. One thing I will say about this is the spark arrestor in here. You got to keep that pretty clean. Your saw needs to be able to breathe, and depending on how rich you make your fuel mix, you could carbon that thing up, and you want your saw to be able to breathe. I pretty much stick exactly to a 50-to-1 ratio, just like what they recommend for mix, 50 to 1. But as we're on the subject of mix and fuel, what I will say is, when it comes to your chainsaw, what you don't want to do is run any of those ethanol blended fuels in your chainsaw, like Chevron Tech 94, is it? Chevron 94, pretty much a high octane fuel. That's what you want to run in your saws. It just won't run right if you have, like Husky and a bunch of the other ones. They have ethanol added, an additive added to the fuel, and these saws just do not run well with that fuel. You can buy I think Stihl actually makes its own pre-mixed fuel. You could buy that, but I just go mix my own. I think it's better myself. Chevron 94. Anyway, see, for your typical weekend warrior, should hopefully be attired at least the way I am. I'm not wearing the chaps or the bucking pants. My chaps, I've got chaps, but I swear they're from the early 1980s. I think they actually cause more of a hazard than like these old bucking pants. I mean, they're just flat panels. I mean, they snag on things, you trip on things walking through the bush. They're no good. Really, what I should purchase are some proper bucking pants, the 3600 rated pants, because I think that's the industry standard. I think you can go up to about 4200. 3600's got a red label. 42, I think, has got a blue label on it. But you know, you really honestly should be wearing bucking pants. And I just don't possess them, so I'm not wearing them right now. But that is definitely on my list of things that I want to buy. It's just for safety, right? And I don't like running earplugs, especially if you're working with somebody else out in the bush. You're watching each other. You're kind of looking for safety. You're checking in with one another every once in a while. So I mean, if I got earplugs in my ears, you know, I'm constantly deaf. Whereas one of these I can just lift and I can stop my saw, listen, okay, his saw is still running, he's okay. You know what I mean? So having earmuffs on your helmet, you got to have a helmet. There's overhead hazards all over the place, and I'm frequently hitting my head on stuff out here in Riflechair Ranch. Most of this wood that you see here, actually, I should finish the safety part. Have a face screen, right? It's not. I mean, we're also talking about firewood cutters. We're not talking about like the industry. However, if you are cutting firewood as part of your job, your vocation, you should have all of the work safe equipment on you. I mean, a high-vis helmet, you should have high-vis shirt on. You should probably have radio communications. You should be wearing eye protection, and if possible, in combination with a face screen. The only problem with these is when you start to get really, really work hard, you start to fog up. At that point in time, you got to take them off, because being able to see is more important than at this point in time, if you've got a face screen, right? Hard hat should have 6 supports, not 4, and they do expire, your hard hats. Okay, they do expire, so you got to make sure you check the date every 5 years, especially if you're in industry. Get another hard hat. So some people get really, really personally attached to their hard hat because they worked and walked and sweated so many miles in them. But you know, plastic harnesses, they do have a tendency to degrade over time, especially if you leave them in the sun. Oh, and why not? We're on the subject of safety. Cork boots. These here are Vibergs. They're a rubber lower and a leather upper. They're great. I'm hoping to get, this is the first year I've been wearing these ones. They're already scarred up and, you know, heavy leather. So you've got sticks in the ankle and stuff like that walking through the bush. They're great. And make sure your corks are kept sharp. These ones here are slightly rounded. I've been walking on lots of granite and these things, gravel roads. But there you go. So we're on Riflechair Ranch, and it's a great. This is an area that we're developing on our property, and so what you see here is right-of-way wood that came off of this. Pretty much all of this was cut with a feller buncher, you know, before we constructed the road. So this area is kind of a mixed wood forest. There's spruce, hemlock, cedar, and we got a fair amount of birch and red alder here. And you should see, I mean, this red alder coming in all over the place. It's a pioneer species, so it seeds in fast, and you got to stay on top of that stuff. But anyway, chainsaw gives you like I don't know, hundreds of uses. I've used it for deconstructing old barns and stuff like that. You know, you just hit him in the right spots and knock him down, push him over, all the way to building a new one. You know, bucking up your cut to length and whatnot. So, and this little tiny MS-170 by Stihl, it's done it all, and I'm just so impressed. You know, I figured I might get a few years out of it. I didn't even change the bearings in it yet. No, okay. I'm not an industry guy running chainsaw every day. I'm not a professional firewood professional cutter. I'm not a faller. Then in BC, if you're falling wood at 6 inches in diameter or more, you need to be a certified faller, right? But in this case, this is not an industry settings. It's just our own personal wood supply and getting ourselves ready for winter. You got to do it. You know you do. Actually, I suppose it is another safety thing, which is to actually have a proper handle on your file for sharpening your bar, and always have one of these pretty close. I frequently, what I'll do is I'll have this stuff on a tool belt, But today I'm just close to the truck, so we're loading up firewood, so it's no problem. I'm not going anywhere long distance, so. That's the oiler right here. Fuel. She's empty right now. The oiler runs out once every 3 tanks. I go through 3 tanks of fuel. I gotta put top up the bar oil. Is it 1996? Can't be. Maybe it is. Let's see, off position, stop, right, all the way to the top. This is an older model. I'm not sure what the new ones look like now. But let's start, full choke at the very bottom. And this is the midpoint. So the, unless you've got your chain guard on, right, you put your chain guard on, you flash her up in that position, take your brake off, and you're good to go. And you shouldn't have anybody around you closer than 3 meters. Even anywhere around the wood that you're cutting, because if something shifts or moves, they don't want to be close to it. You get a pinch, or you get stuck between a couple logs, you're going to be calling for your mother. I like this because we actually still have the guard goes. I think that's not a 3/4, that's a half guard, but I should say grip. Some of them actually have it all the way around on this side too, so you can cut from the other side. Good, especially if you're left-handed or you need to make a left-handed cut. Great. What a great saw. Friggin' bulletproof. I thought it was just like the budget poor man saw, but man, this thing has just kept on ticking. It's just been great. I should probably also add, it's always a really good idea to have something like this. All right, this is it's a pressure bandage, sterile. It holds the air, so there's no puncture. It's still sterile. These are military, and military issue. These are made in Canada. Derma Sciences Incorporated in Toronto, Canada. Anyway, it's always good to have one of these in a place where you can quickly access it. You know, having a saw cut and a deadly bleed is it's real dangerous. So this is a dangerous activity, folks, and I highly recommend you approach it from the perspective of safety. Don't operate outside your scope of knowledge, your scope of practice. You know, keep it simple if you're a newbie, and learn about tension and compression, where to make your cuts, how to relieve stress. You don't want springbacks. It's you know how to fall a tree if you're going to do it. In many ways, bucking wood that's leaning or under pressure or under tension or compression is much more dangerous than just simply falling a tree. Right? If you don't even know how to fall a tree, you shouldn't be out here touching or using a chainsaw. You need to be trained. Hope you guys are doing great. You'll notice that there hasn't been too many gun videos lately. This is busy doing other stuff. You guys know how it is. When the dust starts to settle down, I have so many things I want to do with the firearms portion of the channel. But for now, I better get back to work. Hope you guys are doing great. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf up.